At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
This is your before and after story. Instead of imagining a rewarding career in medical imaging, Southeastern College can actually take you there. Prepare for a career in ultrasound, radiology, and X-ray technology. With hands-on specialized training, simulations, and real-life experience with the latest imaging technology, you'll be ready to play a vital role on any healthcare team. Transform your life by helping others. Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit scc.edu to get started.
Welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast, brought to you by Ampcoil. I'm your host, Freddie Kimmel, and on this show we discuss the common thread survivors share after walking through the fire, the practitioners making a difference, and the treatment modalities that deliver healing back into the hands of the people who need it most. Witness the inspiration we gain by navigating the human experience with grace, humility, and a healthy dose of mistakes. Because part of being human is being beautifully broken. I moved to New York City in September of 2001, a few weeks after the Twin Towers had fallen. Now, this catastrophic event changed the world, but in no way did it hinder my dreams to sing and dance for a living on Broadway. It was this storm of raw emotions and tragedy and chaos that I entered into the island of Manhattan. Now, one thing I never accounted for was the oppressive emotions of loss and sadness that the occupants of the city carried on their sleeves and their hearts and their handshakes. And at the end of the day of auditioning or looking for a job, I would return to my sublet and I would say hello to my roommates. And then I would quietly retreat into the shower where I would lay on the bathtub floor and I would cry. These heavy emotions and this hurt that drove right into the core of my heart. And I would lay on that cold porcelain floor of the tub until there was no more hot water left. This continued for weeks until one morning I woke up with this crippling joint pain. My hands and fingers and knees and shoulders were on fire. Now, I was 23 years old and I could barely hold a cup of coffee. Still, 23 is 23, and I decided Advil swallowed down like candy was an adequate attempt at resolving the problem. Of course, I saw specialists, but nothing really came up in my blood work and nobody had any suggestions. Now, even with this pain, I just want to state that I loved my life. I loved the city and the stage and the community of performers who made up my extended family. Doors continued to open for me as these bigger and bigger jobs were added to my resume. But in the heart of Hell's Kitchen in 2006, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. 9 tumors in my abdomen. 2 had taken up home around my left kidney, another around the superior vena cava running to my heart. More than anything, I was shocked. I was 28 years old, 28 years young, and the last thing on my life plan was cancer. But I quickly accepted the role, that role of disease warrior. And the powerful chemotherapy agents, cisplatin and etoposide, were these silver bullets to this particular cancer, most common in men 15 to 44 years of age. So it was surgery, chemotherapy, and Western medicine. These were the miracle treatments that saved my life. Just 30 years earlier, and at my stage of diagnosis, I would not be compiling this tale onto a Mac laptop. So when I finished up, I went with my friend Ellen Marsh and I got my Live Strong tattoo, and I began the long recovery process of healing from my treatment. I aimed to write a book, to appear on Oprah, and be the shining example of survivorship, appearing on every daytime talk show I could imagine. I documented my journey through a very early blog called Dr. Fred, where I would walk people through the scenarios and awkward survivor stories nobody wanted to talk about. Topics like getting catheter tubes in your penis and radioactive sex after chemotherapy and how to pull off that provocative gym attire with a PICC line hanging out of your muscle shirt. Now, my sister Kate actually submitted my blog to Harpo Studios. That's Oprah spelled backwards. And I was actually in consideration to appear on one of her network television shows. This never ended up happening, but I was honored that somebody was moved to consider the idea. And really, Oprah, there's no hard feelings. I will get you on the other side. So the reality was, with or without being this after-school special poster child for testicular cancer, I was a survivor. I was driven to feel better and grow stronger than I had ever been before my disease. Freddie, set, go. Picture, if you will, this beaten and bewildered protagonist regaining their strength in an epic training sequence. Queen's "We Are the Champions" screams in the background as large weights dropping on the floor from sweat-driven workout regimes compile, and we see this long, slow panoramic shot as I climb Mount Everest in a t-shirt gasping for air. But there was a bump in the road. So the path that I had seen so many comic book movies follow to their rise to superherodom wouldn't be so linear. For one, I began to develop these acute cramping and stomach pains in and around my intestines. The episodes brought me to this, literally, a blackout state of pain. And over the next 3 years, I spent one night a month curled up and collapsed in a ball on my bathroom floor, vomiting throughout the night. The scar tissue in my belly had twisted and tangled around my small intestine. This is actually known as a partial obstruction. And these abdominal adhesions, if you will, these collagen structures, which can hold up to 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, were an unfortunate but all too common side effect of the invasive surgery used to remove the 9 tumors from my belly. But I was prescribed an antispasmodic, opiates for the pain, and I was told to bless my lucky stars that my cancer wasn't back. Now, in 2011, I was rushed to the emergency room where a complete obstruction resulted in removal of 1 foot of necrotic small bowel. The intestine had quite literally died from strangulation as the adhesions twisted and blocked the natural flow of food through the digestive tract, never choosing to release. This experience of a partial or full obstruction was indescribable in its ferocity. As the body continues to send waves of peristalsis down the digestive tract to move food along the path, the buildup of pressure and gas in food is excruciating. Surely anybody who could withstand this level of pain had to possess some sort of superhuman status at the very least. So, I'm still smiling, and I'm still hopeful, and I thought that maybe now that the scar tissue was gone, I would move forward. I was discharged. I was given 20 staples and another pat on the back, the attending physician extending a big congratulations. At least you don't have cancer, kiddo. And instead of my cinematic recovery story, I developed chronic fatigue syndrome. So the art of packing a bag and heading towards the subway platform would often end at a park bench 250 feet from my sublet, followed by a retreat home and a deep sleep throughout the next night. I would often spend 15 to 16 hours in bed and still feel incredibly exhausted. When I went to see doctors seeking answers to why I felt so bad and tired and utterly weak, I received the following responses. Chronic fatigue? There is no such thing. You know what, buddy? It's probably stress. You're traumatized from your near-death experience. This is my favorite. It's all in your head. In reality, the cancer diagnosis was now more than 5 years out, and doctors still blamed it for every pain or symptom I reported. And my digestion soon followed suit, and I began to to have severe reactions to the most benign food, celery, tomatoes, flax seeds, and steak. Now, these were all whole foods and they all caused joint pain, cramping, gas, indigestion. That was the normal after a meal. I hated to eat. I would break out in hives if I couldn't find food in the grocery store I tolerated, and traveling away from the kitchen, that was an utter nightmare. My bathroom habits consisted of alternating months of chronic constipation and diarrhea. Probably the largest taken for granted bodily function I ever had. I never knew the grace for it. And let me tell you something, you don't miss pooping till it's gone. It was the one true gift I had always taken for granted. Something so natural and part of life that I never examined its true value until it was the most challenging part of my day. And walking around the New York City subway system with 2 to 3 days worth of poop inside your colon, well, that could also be considered a superpower. So, as I was passed around from practitioner to practitioner, I was eventually given a diagnosis of Lyme disease. And I only needed to send my blood to 7 different labs while driving across 2 state lines to mail out a test kit that was deemed illegal in New York State. I mean, at least I finally had a diagnosis. That was something to be positive about, right? Well, for starters, I want you to pick up a chronic Lyme book. And if you really want to sink into a bottomless pit of depression, start reading. Every single one is an apocalyptic account detailing the literal hell that you'll be living in for the rest of your life. Classic uplifting titles such as Why I Can't Get Better, Cure Unknown, The Mystery of Chronic Lyme, Suffering in Silence, and finally, Bite Me. If there was one thing Lyme disease needed, it was a new PR firm. I didn't mind the label of Lyme disease. I didn't mind cancer patient. What I did mind was the constant pain. My joints, tendons, and ligaments were on fire, and the pain was constant. It was unrelenting, and I would wake up feeling like someone had taken wooden mallets and pounded the life out of my knees, shoulders, and hips. Now, to add insult to injury, the cramping, stomach pain, and adhesions soon returned after the previous surgery, and with much more frequency, as I spent almost 3 days in a hospital, narrowly avoiding another resection. So now I weighed 153 pounds, down almost 27 from my normal weight of 180. Of course, if you had walked by me in the street or passed me in a store, you would have thought I was a normal guy. And when you are known for the smiles on your face, people often have no idea how bad you're hurting. But inside this guy was in a constant state of struggle. Not fair. Not fair was a silent narrative that looped in my head when I'd look at myself in the mirror. Interesting, the concept that life should be fair when modeled nowhere else in the universe aside from the bedtime stories we read as kids. But my rock bottom was in 2015. I was heading in for surgery number 5 to have additional intestinal scar tissue and adhesions sliced apart to be able to digest food and poop. What a mess. I constantly daydreamed of getting back to before. Before what? Before cancer? Before injections and hormone creams? Before Lyme? Before immune-modifying medications and weekly physical therapy? Before sleepless nights? To a time I experienced joy as an everyday occurrence. You don't miss it till it's gone. And let me tell you, joy was gone. The smiles I brought forth were some of the best acting I had ever done. I couldn't imagine quitting on life. I never contemplated the act of suicide, but I cringed at the thought of living a life of this quality of existence. This was not my life. My focus, my full-time job was managing my symptoms and chronic pain, and it filled every moment of every day. The irony is that I had health insurance. I had supported friends and family. I had access to a network of medical doctors, including rheumatologists, endocrinologists, oncologists, therapists, sports medicine doctors, and the list goes on and on. How was I falling through the cracks of wellness in the greatest country in the world? I'm going to leave that one alone. So I sat on West 52nd Street, staring at a statue of the Virgin Mary through the most dense brain fog you can imagine, and I made a promise to myself. If I ever recovered, I would be a lighthouse for anyone lost in the medical system. I took a breath, and I pushed forward like I always did, because that is hardwired into my DNA, and that is my superpower. So let's start the climb. Number 1, food moves the needle. I happened across a book documenting a woman who had been in a horrible car crash. She had broken most, if not all, the bones in her body and was living on 23 pain medications. She had switched to a plant-based diet, ancestral, outlined by Weston A. Price Foundation, and diminished those prescriptions to 1. I can do that. I did that. My motivator was so strong to feel better, I cut out bread, sugar, nightshade vegetables, and dairy on the turn of a dime. In 6 weeks, I was off all naproxen, indomethacin, and any other anti-inflammatory medications. Next on the list, I changed my relationship with pain forever. I now view the signal from my body as a valuable messenger. Me and pain, we became friends. Now, don't get me wrong, I still felt the inconvenience of pain, but I heard the message. I valued pain's advice and I checked in. I stayed involved in the relationship and I focused on two-way communication. Next up, I started to focus on gratitude for the mobility and the functionality that I already had. I journaled what I was grateful for every single morning and what I wanted more of. Instead of spending hours and hours in chat rooms of groups for the chronically ill, I started to surround myself with healthy, vibrant individuals. Sidebar, the online support system can be incredible, and it can also be a place in which you are pulled to the lowest possible vibration. User beware. However, even when I didn't feel good, I would drag myself to a play, to the movies, at least for a walk in Central Park. I started to connect with my friends outdoors in social settings, almost stepping into the role of a healthy person. I experimented with alternative methods of healing. When conventional medicine brought no relief from the pain, swelling, and fatigue, I looked elsewhere. The impressive list is as follows. Here we go. Ozone therapy, photobiomodulation, infrared saunas, coffee enemas, hypoxic oxygen breathing machines, cryotherapy chambers, ice baths, hyperbaric chambers, cupping, pulse electromagnetic therapy devices, stem cell injections, acupuncture, herbal regimens, PRP therapy, truckloads of supplements, Amazon, you are welcome, prolozone injections, neural therapy, Egoscue movement techniques, auto-urine therapy, liver cleanses, gallbladder flushes, inversion therapy, dry fasting, water fasting, keto, paleo, vegetarian, and pescatarian diets, biofeedback, bioresonance, scanner therapy, transcranial electrostimulation, and amp coil. And as far stretched as these sound, some have made a huge difference in my journey, most a huge dent in my bank account. And I know you're dying to get the top 3, so I can easily say without a question, it has been breath work, fasting, and amp coil. Okay, number 4 is coffee enemas, but that is another episode for another time. Next on my list is I studied. Knowledge is power. Through the last decade, I have acquired certifications as a functional health coach, a personal trainer, a gut health specialist, or Reiki healer. These certifications and educational training seem like a necessary step in my evolution to become that lighthouse for others that I had promised. And by magical coincidence, if there is such a thing, people started reaching out and emailing me and asking for help with their aches and their pains. I started training and coaching people online all over the country. Trust me, whatever your issue, there is a way and there are therapies and modalities you have not heard of in your current sphere of influence. You are a superhero. You're superhuman. You have a superhuman strength. You might not know about it yet, but it exists in unlimited potential in your DNA. I've learned anything's possible. You may just need to shift the mental picture of what you envision that to be. I promise you, if we can put a man on the moon, orbiting our planet, propelled on a rocket in a little metal box, you can do anything you put your mind to. There's a way. What's the difference between you and NASA? Support and community. It took thousands of people working together to create a moonshot, so don't be afraid of support. It's out there. So here we are. I'm still walking and eating and pooping and smiling and laughing and coaching, hosting a national podcast and working with a major startup in California, and I'm really happy. I have been torn apart and put back together more times than I care to think about, but I'm here. And I still have the strength to help other people. Broken? Oh yeah. But in a beautiful way. I know anything is possible because I've done it. The road is definitely long, but I promise you this, if you are in bed somewhere, doubting better days are on their way, trust me, they're coming. I've seen them. And I'm actually waiting for you to get here and share the sunshine, kiddo. So this podcast serves as that. It's a hand to reach out and grab onto. I say this with all sincerity in my being. You will get up and you'll move on. So I want everybody to picture the butterfly in its cocoon, enveloped in its cocoon, as it slips into darkness that could be perceived as its end. You will have periods when you cannot know what's next. And just as that life form has absolutely no idea the magnificent creature it will become, your end form is unrevealed to you. Give it over to faith, or you can worry your way through the next few decades. Either way, you're going to come to the same end point. Give it over to something bigger than yourself, or the fact that every branch of science has confirmed energy cannot be destroyed, simply transmuted to a new form. And I want everyone to go forth with hope that the unknown is out there, and it's really exciting. I thank everyone for listening to me today. I have went back and forth on telling my story, and I thought episode 21 is a perfect time to do it. So I thank you for listening. I hope you found some inspiration. And that is it for today. Namaste. This episode of the Beautifully Broken podcast was brought to you by our lovely sponsor, AmpCoil. Guys, a heartfelt thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, if you found yourself moved and inspired, I would ask that your next stop today is to drop a review on iTunes. Nothing helps a movement like sharing, downloading, and spreading this message. You can follow me on Freddie Set Go on all social platforms, and throwing a screenshot and a favorite quote of your episode in your Insta story or on Facebook. That is the extra credit, next level engagement I am manifesting. So like these little ripples in a pond, your action helps connect this inspired information with the people who need it most. Till next time, I'm your host, Freddie Kimmel. This is the Beautifully Broken podcast. Namaste.